the point about like seeing a Black woman and saying like, oh my gosh, they're helping me celebrate my body. They're helping me find whatever, even though you're saying like you're not a Black woman, but you see Black women being celebratory and finding joy and existing in themselves. And that is opening up space for so many people. But again, on the flip side, what we don't see is like the price that people pay just for existing in the
Right.
world as themselves because of racism and white supremacy. And so it's like, this is why I'm like, when I see, you know, Serena Williams and Lizzo facing all these things, I feel nothing but compassion. And even Oprah, like, oh, because I'm like,
Yeah.
Oprah can say the same thing. We can say have the same conversation about Oprah, but I'm like, why is it that we are always bringing the conversation to hold these people to the fire almost for a system that is literally created against people who look like them?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I'm like, it's hard without having ever had that lived experience. It's hard to see how the world reacts to you for just existing the way that you are in the world.
I'm Cadence Debuse, and this is Busybody Podcast, and I'm so excited to be here today with Chrissy King, whose book I read, but also I subscribe to your newsletter, follow you on the gram.
Yeah.
So tell us about yourself, locate us in time and place with you.
Yeah. So I'm Chrissy King. I am a writer. I do a little speaking. I'm a former strength coach. I talk a lot about body liberation. I talk a lot about anti-racism and DEI and wellness. And I just talk about like liberation beyond the body as well. So kind of all the things, honestly.
I'm so happy to have you on because I love the nuance that you bring out with body liberation versus body positivity. And you also touch on body neutrality. Your book came out a little while ago. So some of those terms, I feel like body neutrality was probably even like a little bit new because I feel like that's like the new one now.
Yeah.
Can you describe what body liberation is as opposed to those two other terms?
Sure. So I think for me, when I have a long, complicated history with body image, which I discuss in my book. And when I was really trying to work towards changing my relationship with body image, I think the thing that I first found was body positivity. And I think that's a term that a lot of people are familiar with. And I think that body positivity was a really good introduction to me to start thinking about my body in different ways. But just a little history, like the body positivity movement was actually founded by fat Black and brown women because they didn't see themselves recognized within like mainstream media and mainstream ideas of beauty. And it had a heavy focus on like social justice. But then over time, it's been co-opted and really commercialized in a lot of ways. And so now when you look at the hashtag body positivity on Instagram or whatever, you see a lot of people in thinner bodies or like mid-sized bodies, which is like the new term, right? Talking about embracing their flaws or their body fat or their dimples or their cellulite and all these things. And I think, so now like current day body positivity is a hyper focus on like self-love, which, listen, we can talk about that. I do think self-love is really important. But it's really lost the impetus of like social justice, right? And like, how are we working to demand justice for the most marginalized bodies among us? And so it's really lost that aspect. And so when I talk about body liberation, for me, what I'm really talking about is like, number one, like this real true understanding, and not in a cliche way, but this real true understanding that like our bodies are really just the vessels that are allowing us to have this human experience. And yes, there are implications for living these bodies because bodies are inherently political, and I will never shy away from that. But also it's more about like, how are we creating a system in which folks, no matter what size, gender, sexuality, skin color, age, you're able to exist in the world free of harm? Because it's not just enough to say, oh, I can look in the mirror and say, I love myself. Like, also, I love that for all of us, and I want that for all of us. But it's really about creating a system that demands justice for all bodies, especially the most marginalized among us. And so then we talk about body neutrality, and body neutrality, I think, because I think the thing with body liberation is that like it's an ongoing journey, right? You don't just like one day and wake up and like have all these realizations about your body, and you don't one day wake up and realize like your body's going to always be changing, and you just the journey is like learning to accept and appreciate those bodies and all of its iterations. Like that takes a long time. So I think for me, example, I was introduced to body positivity. It sounded really great, but I really struggled with it because again, it's a lot about like self-love and like embracing your body. And then it made me feel like, well, I can't do these things. So I'm just failing at now. I'm trying to, it's another thing I'm failing at, right? And it really gave me this belief that like one day I'd be able to like look in the mirror and say, I just love everything that I see. That's not true. Like that never happens for any of us, I don't believe. So neutrality is this place in the middle where it's like, maybe I don't look in the mirror and love everything I see, but I could also look in the mirror and not say disparaging things about myself. I can just be neutral about this is what my body looked like today and work towards saying I can respect this version of my body that I'm in today. And I think that feels a lot more approachable for people, especially when you're really, really in the depths of like body image issues.
You dropped like 1,000 gold nuggets.
Sorry. Once I start rambling, it's just going. So sorry.
It's not a ramble. I just almost want. I wish I had like a little flashing sign to like pull some of your quotes. Be like that one. Um. Well, something that I'm curious about. I mean, I want to really thank you for being on with me because you are critical in your book, rightly so, of a lot of people who are very much like me. I mean, a non-fat body who goes on social media. I literally have a reel pointing at my own cellulite. You literally have a quote being like, a white woman who's not fat pointing at her own cellulite is not revolutionary.
Yeah.
And you've really been burned by a lot of people who are similar to myself or working in similar spaces. So I appreciate you putting yourself out to talk to yet another person like me. And I'm also kind of curious why you want, like, why even engage with someone like myself? Because my assumption about the work that I do and the social media that I put out is that at the end of the day, I can best speak to people who look like me and live in a body similar to me. And my attempt to help untangle us all from white supremacy and capitalism and patriarchy and our own internalized misogyny and our own internalized prejudices is to help anyone detach from, I think in some ways, first capitalism, which like
Yeah.
teaches you that you have to be fixed all the time. So I feel like if I can normalize that we all have cellulite, if I can normalize that we all have whatever things that capitalism tells us are flaws, then I'm helping someone just take that one step back, then hopefully then their eyes get bigger and then they can go, whoa, if I am struggling with this, then somebody who is actually marginalized is suffering immeasurably more. It feels very like, but a feather in a stream.
Yeah.
But it feels like also the best that I can do. And I'm open to discussing that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think multiple things can be true, right? So the conversation where I am critical of like, saying that I accept my cellulite is not necessarily revolutionary per se, but I think there's like two things, right? Like number one, I think that we all can and probably do have personal body image issues, right? So you could be a thinner body white woman who does not like your cellulite, and that is an experience that lots of us have. So it's one thing to say I have a personal body image issue that I'm working towards. That's one thing. And I think what the conversation has to go a little bit further, which I do think you're saying, is that it can't also just be about that, right? You have to be able to say, that's one thing, but that is completely different. Not liking my own cellulite is completely different than living in a body that is systemically oppressed and marginalized. And so I think the shortcoming of the body positivity is that sometimes we don't reach that other part of the conversation. It just stops at like, oh, I don't like my cellulite and I want to learn to embrace that because like capitalism is always trying to tell me there's something wrong with my body. And that is 100% true. But if we stop the conversation without talking about the patriarchy and white supremacy and how anti-fat bias has its roots in racism going back to slavery, like if we're not also having those conversations, that's where I think it falls short. Because again, it's not enough just to be saying, I want to embrace my cellulite and love myself without the conversation being
Right.
intersectional, right? Like we have to be talking about these other systems of
Exactly.
oppression and touching on that as well. Because to your point, it's like the goal is that everybody, especially those that are more marginalized us, have the same freedom to exist in our bodies free of harm.
And I think that's where like the Dove commercialization of body positivity
Yeah.
falls really short. And also like where that movement got really co-opted to become commercialized and all this stuff. it started, like you say, as like a good entry point for anyone who's struggling with their body image. And then once it just gets kind of co-opted and commercialized to just like body positive, whatever, clothing, blah, 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 it stops addressing. I mean, once you step into like mass commercialization, you're stepping into capitalism. Now you're
Yes.
just stepping right into white supremacy, colonialism, all these
Yes.
systems. It's a really hard. And let me also just side note, commerce is different from capitalism. I do have a business and I charge things that people are
Yes.
allowed to get paid for their time and effort, which is different than having like a system of hierarchy where you're exploiting the lowest workers and blah, 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 and literally profiting, trying to create systems that create fake needs so that
Yes.
people are like, now I have to have Alexa because I can't use my legs anymore for some reason, even though
Right.
really I could, and I could walk down the stairs and go get something at a store.
Yes. Exactly.
So I think that I was really excited to see that articulated so well in your book, because that's a place that I've also had this kind of discomfort of like, how do you just be visible as a white woman trying to discuss these things when Dove is like over your shoulder, trying to paint this picture that all body positive is like people of all shapes and sizes holding hands. And it's like, our experiences are not the same. We are all under the same like evil ogre, but like our experiences within that system are different. And that's also something that Fearing the Black Body, which you talk about a
Yeah.
lot, like exploded my mind because as a white woman, her articulation that literally white women's fear of fatness exists to create an other, so
Yes.
that we are both kind of suffering this cage of like, in order to create someone that is worse than you or whatever, like this othering thing, you have to uphold this really strict standard, which we see with
Absolutely.
people like Gwyneth Paltrow. We see with all these celebrities that are already size zeros becoming even more skeletal, which tends to happen more in white culture.
Yeah.
And I think that's really like that. I'm a Gemini, quick thinker. I'm someone that when someone gives me like a new idea, I'm just immediately like, yes, I have now taken this in. I mean, that I just stopped calling myself fat ever. Like,
Yeah.
that, I like read that sentence and I was like, okay, done.
Okay. Got it.
I was like,
Yes.
that doesn't ever cross my lips again. Like,
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it. It's about like creating this system of hierarchy, of, like which bodies are more valuable and worthy of respect and more deserving. And so I think back to your question, I think that like my recommendation for all women talking about bodies is to read Fearing the Black Body, right? So that
yeah,
you have this fundamental understanding, because I think it's easy to unintentionally do harm when you don't have that knowledge.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of social media, also just because the format itself is essentially superficial. Like, you cannot talk in depth
Yeah.
and nuance.
Yes.
So you have to just be like, blah, this idea. And if you can't, I mean, I'm always like, read my caption, because I
Yeah.
can only say so much in 30 to 90 seconds, but I try in my caption without also triggering the algorithm to bury my work by
Yeah.
using words like racism. Trying to point out those bigger nuances. I also, your book talks so much about joy, and I think that's also something that really gets lost in this conversation about caring for our bodies, because there's so much focus on us all repairing our relationship with our body and also trying to be intersectional, and it's like heavy work.
Yes.
And then you had a similar critique that I do to body neutrality, where I'm like, if body neutrality is helping you just like take a breath, that's great. And certainly some people's experience of their bodies is so extreme that that's like the closest they're going to get. I love it. I also sometimes feel like it's like, as I say, the body beige of the body experience, where I'm just
Yeah.
like, I want so much more for you though, without that being a criticism. I'm just like, I just want to open this other door for you and be like,
Yes.
but what if also you could celebrate? And I think, could you speak a little bit about the difference between positive versus celebrate, joy, experience, which I do think is much more articulated in Black culture than white culture, because white
Yeah.
culture, especially Anglo white culture, which is which is kind of the dominant culture of the US, is Puritan based. And
Yeah.
my family is originally from Eastern Europe and like the Mediterranean. So I don't have Anglo blood or background or culture. So there's also another book that I love called The Black Dancing Body by Brenda
Mm,
Dixie Gottschalk. I
I
don't know
haven't
if
read
you've
that
ever come
one.
across
No, I
her.
have to read that
She's
one.
probably quite a bit older than us. I met her when I was in college. She's a dancer and a performing artist. Her husband's a white German man. She's Black American. They do these like, I mean, they probably don't do it anymore, but they do these like really intense performance art pieces that are where
Mm.
he's like eating meat off of her body and and she like carries him around because he's like this little German man.
Gosh, I need to find this on YouTube or something. This sounds
Yeah,
really
I've been
interesting.
trying to get her on the podcast, but honestly, she's old enough that she keeps not understanding that it's not that she doesn't have to be in New York.
Yes, like
I'm
you're
just
gonna
like,
do this
it's
on the
like
internet.
radio. But her book was the first book that I read. I don't even know if it would be couched as like, I mean, it is anti-racist, but I was like in my early 20s. It was the first book that really articulated for me this difference in kind of Anglo-white culture versus sort of Black diaspora, because she is talking about the history of American modern dance and basically like Black and white performance. And what really blew my mind is Black and white audience, where she talks about how white audiences are afraid of mistakes. So if the ballerina falls or whatever, it's just a whereas Black audiences clap
Yeah.
for expression and someone pushing themselves beyond and like the sweat, the mistake, and that also then really translates into how we address our bodies and our communities, and that Eastern European white women were the kind of first women creating American modern dance in collaboration with lots of Black and brown artists. But that was because they were curvier than the Anglo women that were in the ballet world. So they were also experiencing the prejudice of this body hierarchy and finding place with people whose bodies were also curvier. And she calls it bent kneed dance versus straight kneed dance.
Yeah.
So other cultures dance tends to knees are bent and we're closer to the ground, which is kind of how American modern dance started. And white European dance is all straight dance all the way to like Irish step dancing and all that
Mhm.
stuff, straight knees, straight joint, and a
Yeah.
lot of like restriction. This is a very long tangent of just like joy, expression, enthusiasm, connection to the body, which like allows variance,
Hmm.
is so powerful. And I just think is not often enough part of the white conversation around bodies. And that's where
Yeah.
body positivity, even in its non-commercialized roots, always falls flat for me because it feels like it's always just about an aesthetic and an outside eye and just like, I love my faults. And it's like
Mhm.
that I want to hear you like laugh, sing, jump
Yes.
around about your body, not just be like, freckles are cute.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting because I think joy is so important in any liberatory work, right? And I
Yeah.
think uh, I like joy has to always be a part of the equation. And I think when specifically thinking about Black American and Black American culture, like we would never have survived the things we survived in America without joy. Joy always has to be because like no matter what, going from slavery to we are now, we've always been very difficult times. And like part of resilience has to be joy
Yeah.
because otherwise why would you keep doing the things that you're doing, right? Like joy is so critical to existing. And I'm speaking again to the Black American experience. Joy has to be a part of our lives, right? For existence and for pleasure and like to be able to say yes, like all these terrible things happen or happening if we're speaking back like my ancestors, right? To say like all of these terrible things are happening and I'm still going to keep being here and I'm going to keep hoping for a better future and I'm going to keep finding joy in the moment. And like when you're talking about like this experience of even dancing and like someone messes up and we're clapping, like I think about the Black experience of like church even growing up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Black people in church are very expressive. Like it's we're singing, we're raising our voices, we're dancing, we're clapping. Like that is a part of embodying ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so when you even bring it back to your bodies, like yes, this work is difficult, right? And liberation work is different. Anti-racism work is difficult. And I actually think that this is really part of the conversation around 2020, right? Where so many white folks were like open to this idea of like, dismantling white supremacy, but it was very short-lived because like the work is challenging, right? It's not a
Yes.
self-improvement
Constant
project.
discomfort. Yeah.
It causes discomfort in your body, and it's not something that you're going to feel like warm and fuzzy about. And so I think a lot of people embrace the idea because I felt like I want to be doing the right thing. But then when you have to sit with the actual discomfort of it, it's actually really hard to sit with that discomfort or to say, like, what am I actually willing to part ways with in pursuit of dismantling white supremacy or dismantling racism or all these things? And so whatever kind of work you're doing, you have to be able to learn to exist with the discomfort and the joy. And so when it comes to our bodies, like I don't want to spend the rest of my life always every day laboring about I want to fix this thing or even to the point of what you're saying, like I don't want to always sit in this place of like, I'm just going to accept this for what it is. Like, no, I actually want to be like, wow, I love that I get to move in this vessel that I have. I love
Yeah.
that I get to embrace this new version of my body because again, bodies are always going to be changing, right? And so it's like, I don't want to just be, okay, I'm satisfied with it, or okay, I'm going to like acquiesce. I
Hmm.
want to feel so good in this vessel that I'm in. And feeling so good is also going to be different depending on the day, especially if you're dealing with chronic illness, if you're dealing with all of these things. But it's like, I want more for us than just to be like, I'm going to be neutral for the rest of my life. And that is not a criticism to anybody who's in that place because I've also been in that place before. But like, it can be so much different and so much more freeing. And you can live a life that feels so much joyful when you work through some of those things. And I just think, I talk about this in the book as well. When I was so stuck in this place of like just thinking about my body every day, it was such a draining thing mentally, and I didn't have like all this creative energy to go do these other things or like create for joy or just whatever because I was so my all my mental energy was going to my body. And I'm like, I don't want any of us to spend the rest of our lives with all of our mental energy going to our bodies when we could and be embracing joy. And I think even the concept of joy right now is something that I feel like we need to be talking about more, not just as it pertains to body, but just like everyday life, because everything in the world is so heavy right now, right?
Yeah.
And they're very real things that are impacting all of us in major ways. And still there's a place for joy. Um, and I think for folks who are more marginalized and have had more marginalized histories, we know and understand that yes, things are bad, but also to be fair, things have been worse in the past for folks like me, right? And I'm not making little any light of anything that's happening
No.
because they're all really big things. But like you have to be able to coexist with how are we fighting against systems of oppression and also feeling joy in our lives every day because otherwise you will burn out. Like there's no way to continue to do the work without also embracing that part.
I think what you're also talking about is the it's complicated to figure out that if we suffer this kind of internalized, I'm constantly focusing on my own body, we're really buying into what seems to be a very American ideal of soloism, or what is it, individualism.
Individualism, yes.
And when you actually move into joy, I think a lot for especially white people, it's like this discomfort of like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I'm supposed to just like have a great day while like people are suffering so much in Gaza. And it's like, no, you have a great day with other people, and that's community. Whereas if you
Yes.
collapse on your couch, just like face plant down, you've
Yeah.
basically like even more subscribed to this harmful system. And that's so hard to remember. And I think just in terms of like white guilt and people trying to sit with discomfort, that's like a funny touch point. You wouldn't think that like the joy part would be such a place of like, blah, I can't deal with this anymore, and walking away. But I
Yeah.
think like I've noticed that within my own social group, that is a place where people are constantly just like, I don't know what to do. Like I feel already guilty. I feel already like I can't do enough. And now I'm so depressed. I'm reading the news. I'm trying to
Yeah.
bear witness. I feel even worse. But now I also feel guilty. Like I'm supposed to go out and like have a great picnic lunch with a friend. And I kind of want to like, just throw myself in the river. You're listening to Busybody Podcast, sponsored by Brooklyn Strength, my studio. Brooklyn Strength is a virtual fitness and wellness studio offering weekly drop-in live virtual classes, monthly workshops, one-to-one private sessions with me or my teaching staff, as well as a whole host of self-paced coaching courses in strength, stability, injury prevention, as well as Nourish Yourself, my course where you can really deep dive with me to create daily habits around food and movement that are sustainable and not misogynistic, fatphobic, or racist. Challenging, but we do it. If you would like to support this podcast, you can support Brooklyn Strength by signing up for our classes or supporting me via Substack with a subscription. Hope you're enjoying this show. How do you connect? Was there a point in your journey where you started to connect joy and your healing with your body? Were they existing kind of parallel? Were they not existing simultaneous?
Yeah, I think I really started to connect to the importance of joy once I really started working through some of my body issues because
Mm-hmm.
I again my experience with um having diet culture and disordered eating and all of these things were that it was really all consuming for me. Right. And so I was always looking to like, oh, well, once I get to this goal weight, then I'm going to be happy. Right. I'm going to find
Right.
that joy once I get to this, whatever. And then I would get to that place and I'm still unhappy. And I'm like, okay, well, that wasn't the answer. And so I think when I read, the Body's Not Apology is one of the first books I read when I was like really working through by Sonia Renee Taylor.
Yeah.
And I think that really helped me understand, it helped me connect a lot of dots, right? Between like the intersection of like also how race imply or race or sexuality or all these different things, ableism ties into the way that we feel about our bodies. And so then I started to understand that like I'm making this a personal issue, right? I'm putting the onus on me. If I could just fix the way I feel about myself, then I would feel better. When it's like, oh, actually, it's like all of the systems that we exist in that is making it difficult for us. And that's when I was like, oh, okay. So like I don't have to spend all of my energy trying to fix myself because that's not ever going to work anyways. And I started to understand like how what you're saying is like all of these systems really want us to be focused on these things. Because
Yeah.
again, when we're focused on these things, we don't have the energy to worry about things like fascism or authoritarianism, like all these things happening because like I'm so hyper focused on me, this individual nature, what I need to fix about myself. And when you move out of that and you recognize that like these are big systemic issues that I probably still can't individually fix, but it is that sense of community. And it's also like, how can I find other like-minded individuals? What are the things I can do in my day-to-day life to try to combat these systems? And and then it's like, oh yeah, like this is not like a personal failing.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
can realize that's not personal failing, that helped me find peace, number one. And then I can start to move, for me anyways, towards joy and towards, again, freeing up that energy to think about the things that I really want to be doing, whether it be creatively or whether it be activism work, whatever those things are. Like I can find joy in that, and I can find joy in cultivating a community of like-minded people that make me feel really nourished, that I enjoy existing with. And I think to your point too, it's like we think about the things that are happening in the world now and they're all terrible, but like suffering has always existed in the world. One thing that is really different now is that we're watching it in 4K on our phones, right? Genocides have been occurring throughout history forever. Um, we as people aren't used to watching everything unfold in the way that we are on social media every single day. And so I think that's also an important part of the conversation because I do think it's important to be informed, yes, but watching the news and reading these things all day and then collapsing on the couch because they're depressed is also not helping us
Not an
either.
action.
It's not
Yeah.
an action. It's not helping us. It's not creating change. And so I think that we also have to fight against that narrative that we feel like we have to watch all day to know what's happening. And when you do that and you're exhausted, your nervous system is out of whack, you're completely drained, and then you just, again, collapse on the couch. It's like we also haven't taken any action to create change.
Right.
And so it's also understanding that, like, yes, we need to be informed, but no, we do not have to be watching and reading all day long every day.
Yeah. I think um I would add to that my own self-care method has been because of just this massive onslaught is to just choose like 2 to 4 resources.
Yes.
And those are people that have immense capacity to take in things,
Yeah.
digest it, put it out that I trust so that also my perspective is not too biased, but that I'm just like, this person kind of gives me the roundup of important things. This person
Hmm.
gives me the actions. This person gives me like the deeper thoughts.
Yeah.
even my partner, as I'm partnered with a white heterosexual man, he's the least struggling person on planet Earth, which means he has a bigger capacity to take things in. He
Yes.
doesn't get as scared. He doesn't get as emotionally involved. So I literally, we both subscribe to abortion every day, which I'm
Yeah.
like
Me too.
constantly
Yeah.
recommending. I can't read it. I get
No,
so
because it's
upset.
every day. I can't
Yes,
do it. Yeah.
I know she is a strong person.
Wrong person. Yeah.
Um, but my partner reads it, and then he gives me the filtered view. Like he'll be
Yes.
like, "Did you read Jessica Blendey's thing?" And I'm like, "I skimmed the headline. Please tell me the important things that I should know. I cannot read stories about women dying in parking lots."
Yeah.
Um,
And
but
that's
I think,
important to know that. Like, I can't do
yeah,
this every single day. And that doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you understand your capacity.
yeah, exactly. And I feel like that's a legitimate resource. Like I'm just saying to people listening, like if you have a friend who's literally less marginalized or just has, their job is in academia, they read things all the time. It's like literally tap people in your world who just have capacity to digest stuff for you. Because obviously I think what we're also talking about is part of being active is being informed. And so
Yes.
you don't want to completely fall off and just be like, oh, I don't read anything. It's also stressful. Like
That's a
that's
whole
not
other, that's
helpful.
not what we're saying.
Um,
No.
yeah, that's a whole other thing. But like, yeah, if you are at all engaged, you're constantly in a dance of how do I not traumatize myself to the point that I can't do anything.
Hmm.
And I just become overwhelmed, which is also capitalism. That's also part of these systems to overwhelm, so that we do isolate, so that we stop going out. So we say no to the thing that nourishes us because we're like, I can't, I feel so down. Or now I feel guilty. I don't want to go to my yoga class that I love because I just feel guilty to do something for myself, blah, 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 forgetting that that's actually community. It's not this selfish act or something.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, I do really, really think that the amount of like the breaking news that we have every day is part of the greater system to exhaust us all because when we're exhausted, we actually can't take any action because it feels too overwhelming. Like there's too many things. I don't know what to do. And so to your point, it's like, what are the 3 to 4 things that I personally, because you can't do all the things, it's not possible, right? But what are
Yeah.
the actions that I can take towards creating change? And let me focus on those things.
And kind of to bring it back to your book, like I do think, and it's a huge part of my work and my teaching, that one of the first things we can do is free ourselves in our own bodies,
Yes.
because that's like a whole thing. Even as my partner has been part of activist communities at various times, and like activists often burn out. And part of that also is just like literally being disconnected from your own body. So even if you're not a person who sees themselves as an activist, it's really hard to do any work of dismantling things, to even just like bring up to your coworkers or this or that this doesn't feel like an inclusive event that we're putting together, or like, shouldn't we make sure there's like whatever your little thing that you're trying to do in your world, it's really hard to do that and then also be like, let me just enter my meal on my calorie counting app.
Yes. Yes.
Like that's just a real like brain disconnect that's really hard. Or like you're saying, trying to do that work at the same time as you're sitting there going, oh my God, my thighs are touching. I feel so fat. Like, why? Having that whole stream of consciousness while you're also at some board planning meeting where you're like, oh, I really want to bring up that we need to make sure low income people can take part in this thing. That's really hard to hold both those things in space. And let me tell you, the white guy isn't having that.
No. And that's the truth though, because it's like it is so true. And this is why I always say too, like dieting is like one of the biggest distractions for women. And I don't care if people disagree with that statement, is because it really keeps us distracted.
Yeah.
And to your point, men are not, I'm not saying that men don't have body image issues and don't start, because of course they do. But by and large, they're spending less of their mental energy and capacity thinking about their bodies in the ways that we do. And it does make a massive difference in your life. And everything you're saying is true. It's hard to be thinking about, oh, how can we do this or how can we do that? When at the back of your mind, you're like, oh, I have to, yeah, I've tracked my macros or like what I have left to eat for the day. Like you can't do both of those. It's hard to do both of those things.
Yeah, I told my clients, I have a program called Nourish Yourself, which is basically just like more coaching from me on these things, trying to heal our relationship with ourselves. And one of the things that I talk about is that weight loss is really just it's like the graduate level of connecting to yourself, meaning that it's like for hobbyists only. Like if you are really excited about, you want to do a weightlifting competition and bodybuilding stuff where you want all your muscles to pop and you want to grease yourself up, have fun doing that as a hobby on the
Yeah.
side, which is literally like as if I was going to say, I'm going to make quilts for all my friends this weekend. That's significant time and energy. It's not something to do constantly in your daily life. And I think anyone who does intentionally lose weight for competitions of some kind, I used to date a guy that did MMA. They do weigh-ins for boxing. They
Hmm.
spend like 8 days, like cutting weight, whatever. Um, if none of those people do that constantly,
No.
and they would all tell you don't do that constantly. Like if you want to intentionally lose weight, it is like for a specific time and period and because it's time consuming and
It's
it's like
time
energy
consuming. And
consuming. It's hard.
yeah, all the things. And I love that analogy. It's like, yes, if I'm going to make quilts for my family this weekend, that's all I'm going to be worried about.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that is exactly what it's like. So it's like to constantly be living your life in that manner is really difficult to do anything else in your life.
Yeah. And I think also, since you also have experience as a fitness professional, there's a difference between intentionally losing weight with a thought process of like, I must be different. I have to be different. And I'm putting this caveat out there because I think this also gets left out sometimes in like body positivity or fat activism. Even there's also self-care in someone who has noticed that their body has changed because of habits which are not supporting themselves, like staying up all night, crying in front of the TV, stress eating, being super depressed. And that has potentially made them lose weight. And then you can quote unquote intentionally lose weight, which is really just you being like, I need to put myself to bed. I
Yes.
need to talk to a
I
therapist.
need to drink
I need,
water.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
exactly. And you may end up losing weight from that, but that is a very different mindset than I am hyper obsessing. It's all about the outside. It's all about numbers. It's all about this. Like that is really a kind of like demented obsession that is
Yeah.
super harmful. And I really want to separate that from, I think sometimes I have clients that are like, aware, intelligent, informed women who are like, okay, but also I had 2 kids and like, I really want to lose weight because I'm uncomfortable. This isn't what my body was before. My life has changed. I have no time. I'm super stressed out. And it's like, well, let's just work on that. You have no time and you're super stressed out. Let's
Yes.
start
How can we
working on
address
that.
those things?
Yeah. And like,
Yes. And let's see
that
what
may or may not.
happens.
Yeah, let's see what happens. But that's a
Yeah.
very different thing than like, sure, let's put you on this protein,
Yeah.
whatever thing.
Yeah.
Which
And I think that,
immediately
oh, I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think that's a really important reframe because it's like, even when I used to do coaching for folks, it's like, let's figure out how we can nourish you, is what you're essentially saying,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe I'm not eating any vegetables. Let's just add some vegetables to your diet. Let's
Yeah.
add some water. Let's do these. And maybe those things result in weight loss and maybe they don't. But like, how is it that you want to feel? And let's not make that connected to like the number on the scale, right? Like, let's
Yeah.
just do the habits that will help us feel better in our bodies.
Yeah. Yeah. I had originally reached out to you when the Serena GLP topic was really hot. But
Yeah.
now you just made me think about the whole controversy around Lizzo losing weight.
Yeah.
And I haven't weighed in on that because I also just don't pay attention to celebrity culture. But the little that I've delved in, I actually feel like her weight loss my take is I feel like she rocketed to stardom at a very young age.
Hmm.
She's been touring, getting immense amounts of fame. She's super open on social media. I can only imagine the kind of crazy pressure that's been. And just like even just as like in my little world, like the amount of people that reach out to you wanting things from you and all this stuff, like to be at her level the stress level must just be like, as insane. The boundaries that she must be trying to figure out as a very young person. And you're very alone when you're in that role, even though you have all these trusted people, you're also paying them. It's like it's not good. My vibe has been that she basically is just starting to take care of herself and is like, she's literally posting that she's like drinking water, resting, working out regularly, which is just like, just
Normal
general
thing.
self-care, which has been
Yeah.
changing her body, which seems very different from someone who's like I've decided that my body is not okay and now I'm changing it. I've been like much less upset in any way by her weight loss, and I've been sorry that some people in like the fat activism world have really been coming down on her, because I'm like, she's literally just modeling that she's evolving and growing as a person, and like other things were not serving her, and like for her that's changing her body.
Yeah, I talked about the Lizzo of it all in one of my Substacks because I have
Oh
actually a
yeah.
lot of feelings about this because there's so many things to talk about. And I actually think this also goes along with the conversation around Serena, right? Number one, like I think that I was really disappointed to see so many people in the fat activism community, especially talking about Lizzo and her body changes, because number one, people's bodies are allowed to change, even if it's in a direction that you don't approve. Like people are allowed, bodies change. And I think we say that bodies change and people accept that in the fat activism community when it means your body gets bigger. But bodies also change, meaning your body could get smaller for a variety of reasons. And
Yeah.
that could be intentional or a completely out of your control, or it could just be a result, like you said, of taking better care of yourself. And what really frustrates me about like all of these conversations around Lizzo and well, particularly around Lizzo and around Serena Williams is that no matter what a black woman does with her body, someone's going to be upset
Right.
about it because the amount of like disgusting comments that Lizzo got about her body when she was in the larger body was unrelenting. And Lizzo, in my opinion, has always been celebratory of her body at every
Mm-hmm.
size. She was,
Mm-hmm.
and when she was in a larger body, she was all the things, right? Like,
Yeah.
never was
I
she
mean,
like,
she's really like
just,
an exhibitionist. She was
yes,
out there like
shaking
making
ass in her
all the
thongs. Like,
space.
she
Yeah,
didn't care.
literally. That was the first thing which came to my mind. I would open my Instagram and be like, "Oh my god, that's so
Where's Lizzo?
fun."
This was butt in her face. So she was always unapologetic about her body.
Yeah,
Right. And so it's like now she lost weight and now folks in the fat activism community are upset because she somehow betrayed us. I'm like, first off, Lizzo, nobody owes us anything in
yeah,
relation to their bodies. And I think that we have to like really uncouple ourselves from celebrity culture in the sense that we look to these people as a beacon of hope when they've never promised us that for one. And also we don't even know these people personally, right? And so it's like if we're always making um our ability to feel okay in our bodies based on the celebrities the way they look, like we're always going to be disappointed.
yeah,
And so I think that's one part of it. And then the second thing I will say is like for Serena and Lizzo, black women live at the intersection of racism, fat phobia, and sexism. And so it's like when fat activists, especially non-black fat activists, are upset with Lizzo and or Serena, I'm like, again, unless you have lived with a black woman in the world and understand that experience, I really feel like this is not the place for you to feel express your disappointment in these folks. And
yeah,
I talk about this a lot with Serena because like we can all have feelings about what the Serena, and the GLP-1 of it all, but Serena's entire career, and I talk about this in the book, in her entire career, she's referred to as a gorilla. She's referred
yeah.
to as all these and things that are very intentional because of the color of her skin and the size of her body. Like you don't just call someone a gorilla just coincidentally, right?
Right.
That's deeply racist and it's deeply sexist. And so her body has always been at the forefront of every conversation. And so, for whatever reasons, which we can't fully know, that Serena has decided to embrace a GLP-1 journey. The one thing I keep thinking about is that if you your entire life have been at the forefront of this type of body talk, I don't find it all that surprising that you say, maybe if I was just in a thinner body, it would quiet
Yeah,
some of that noise.
yeah,
And so it's like I can understand that. And so, I saw a lot of people, especially like thinner white women on the internet saying, like, well, if Serena can't who's like the greatest athlete of all time, doesn't feel good in herself, how will it ever be possible for us? And I'm like, well, you guys are like missing a really big thing here because Serena's existing as a black woman in the world. That is not your experience. You're already much closer to Eurocentric standards of beauty. So I don't know why you're expecting a black woman who has a completely different lived experience to be your beacon of hope for you as a, you know what I'm
right.
saying? And so I'm like,
Yeah, yeah,
we have to extract ourselves from this idea that these folks that we have put on a pedestal are responsible for how we feel in our bodies. And especially when Black women are way more marginalized within this whole
yeah.
conversation. It's like, how are they the antagonists for the problem that exists already?
I'm gonna try and articulate something in real time. Pardon fumbling. Um, I guess I don't know how to sort of articulate the experience both Lizzo and especially Serena, because she's been a celebrity, I think, longer than Lizzo, at least at that level, made space for me in my body 100%. And I looked to them as a white woman in a straight size body
Mhm.
as um, a recognition that my body is also okay, which is kind of bananas,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
also true. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just straight up true. Um, I teach a kettlebell class, and we would, back when I had a storefront, we would listen to Lizzo every class, and that was like it was Lizzo or Beyonce, and it was just a bunch of white women, and we were, I guess, learning to celebrate our bodies through these Black women
Yeah.
whose experience is so different. And my personal feelings about Serena was this sense of grief that is very adjacent to, if she can't feel comfortable, how can I? And I think that comes from, like, because whatever racism I still internalize is not so externalized, that I am in many ways like missing the fact that she's experiencing the life as a Black woman. So I'm looking at her just as an incredible woman.
Yeah.
And so I'm
Hmm.
like, if she's literally the best athlete like in the world, blah blah blah, and I think she's so beautiful, and I was all excited about her clothing line that she came out with back
Yeah.
in the day and all this stuff, and I'm following along, you know. And then I'm also an athlete, and I'm looking at her like after she had her kid and like as she got older, and I'm like literally looking to her for leadership. When she took that left turn, I felt this like personal grief of just like, kind of like any teacher, it's like, don't meet your idols. Like any
Yeah.
teacher turning around and you're like, what? That's what my teacher does on their weekend.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, the that is the work for the white experience, is like, you always have to take one step back. Because when I wrote about her as well, and I was trying to find a clip reel, because I'm sure you remember when she first was like out on the scene, there was so much made about how much noise she makes when which is
Yes.
kind of goes back to holding about black and white audiences and all
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
especially freaking tennis world, which is the weirdest sports audience where it's like silent.
Yeah.
Um, but I was like trying to find a clip reel of her smashing balls and shouting, and literally all I could find on YouTube was racist clip
Hmm.
reels
Yeah.
of that. They were all just titled Serena Rages. And I was like,
Hmm.
oh, maybe it means rages in like cool beast
Mm-mm.
mode. And I would click on it, and it was literally just Serena saying reasonable things in a reasonable tone to the referee or whatever, or people in the audience who were literally shouting racist things at her. And I
Hmm.
was like, Jesus fucking Christ. I like can't just find a clip reel, which I know exists because I saw it at some point, of her just being a badass. And um so that's what I ended up saying in my essay, was like, I tried really hard to just show how all this space that she made, including literally that women are allowed to grunt, that women are allowed to just like show effort, which is also something that just women of all of the world, part of being feminine in a woman is like, no hair out of place, like don't let anyone see how much work it is for me to present myself. And she really broke barriers in that by just being like, hi, I'm out here working really hard. Like,
Yeah.
literally winning every game. Um, so this is the fellow part. I don't have a
Well,
problem,
no, but
but that's just my experience.
I think that what you're saying brings up a really important point, though, right? Like we can see Serena as this incredible person that's making space for us in all these really, really big ways, without at the same time seeing how much of a toll this is taking on her to
Yeah,
make that space but not even doing anything extraordinary, by just showing up as herself,
as herself.
right? And so it's like, this is what I think, going back to the point about like seeing a Black woman and saying like, oh my gosh, they're helping me celebrate my body, they're helping me find whatever, even though you're saying like you're not a Black woman, but you see Black women being celebratory and finding joy and existing in themselves, and that is opening up space for so many people. But again, on the flip side, what we don't see is like the price that people pay just for existing in the
Right.
world as themselves, because of racism and white supremacy. And so it's like, this is why I'm like, when I see, Serena Williams and Lizzo facing all these things, I feel nothing but compassion. And even Oprah, like, oh, because I'm like,
Yeah.
Oprah can say the same thing. We can say the same, have the same conversation about Oprah, but I'm like, why is it that we are always bringing the conversation to hold these people to the fire almost
Hmm.
for a system that is literally created against people who look like them?
Yeah, yeah,
And so I'm like, it's hard without having ever had that lived experience. It's hard to see how the world reacts to you for just existing the way that you are in the world.
yeah, yeah. And I think to your point about like why are we always holding them to the fire? The especially with Oprah, it's like, what about all the audiences that were eating up all that content? What about, everyone
Yeah.
weighing in on her, weighing herself in, um, the culture that we create that this machine just continues to like chomp through these
Yeah.
people. Um, and yeah, well, celebrity is also just bizarre because it projects this idea that this person is like somehow untouchable, but they are a real person who's
Yeah.
reading these comments or hearing these things, or, Oprah like going out on a freaking stage every week talking all, that is a kind of pressure that I really can only imagine, just even as someone who is also public. Like I could never imagine that level.
Yeah.
And I think that's also where it's really important to for white people who are looking to these figures to lead them in some way is to not take it a step further and like claim them or something, but
Mhm.
just to stay remembering
Yeah.
that people can give their gifts and you're allowed to, join that, accept that, enjoy that, but not I didn't make Lizzo the like subtext of my class. I didn't,
Yeah.
I wasn't like, come to class, we listen to Lizzo or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm not now like owning what she's putting out. And I think that's a really dicey place where a lot of well-intentioned white people can feel like, oh, but I'm taking part in this thing, or I'm supporting this, black leader of whatever kind, and then like take one step over where you're now kind of inserted yourself into it, or you're like, I'm holding it instead of recognizing, no, I'm receiving this.
Yes, I'm receiving this gift from this person. And if I can take something from it and garner something from it, like, thank goodness. But let me not, as soon as they do something that I don't like, I'm like,
Right.
oh, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's just, I don't know. I think it's hard for all of us, I think, because again, we do in a lot of ways have these parasocial relationships with folks,
Yeah.
whether it be celebrities or just like influencers, right? And then we feel like we're so disappointed. And it's like, you know, we can only we can take what we can benefit from folks, but like we can't hold them to on some pedestal and then feel
Hmm.
personally attacked. And I think this is also a big conversation that's happening as a lot of like former fat positive influencers are losing
Hmm.
weight, right? And
Hmm.
people are like disappointed by it. And I understand that we can hold grief at the same time as also saying, this person didn't promise me anything and maybe
Yeah.
I could just unfollow them. Like it's not a person for me to
Yeah.
follow anymore. And so I think we can hold grief, but I do think that's such a big part. And I talked a little bit, I saw someone talk about this on Substack last week, and then I elaborated on my newsletter a little bit. Is like, I know it's really difficult right now because like thin is in again, and we're seeing all these people shrinking and all of these things. But if we were not all on social, would it feel as intense? And I
Yeah.
would argue
Seriously.
that it probably doesn't. Like, yes, we may know some people in our lives, but not in the way that we are experiencing it now.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. No, that's a huge point. And that brings us back to the individualism versus community. And I think
Yeah.
very much the social media feed, the way that, the algorithm feeds you things once you click on stuff, that is again to kind of isolate us into these
Yeah.
silos. And then you just lose track. Where it just feels like everyone is doing this thing, or I'm missing out, or whatever it is. We've all fallen down multiple, social media holes where you're just like, suddenly I'm on this person's page who I don't know and I'm watching their birthday party. Why?
Yeah. Right.
So I think, yeah, when you open your eyeballs and you go out into the world, yeah, personally, I know two people that have done GLPs, and one of them had many code diseases that are for taking GLPs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's not as rampant as it feels when a public figure does it, who is under way, way, way more pressure. Like all the celebrities, like all the white women celebrities that are clearly on it too, that are like skeletons right now. they're not in my world. And the world that
Yeah,
they're in is so rarefied and so bizarre, really, that to look to these people for guidance is kind of ridiculous because they're just I mean, as someone I've taught celebrities, like they exist in a completely
completely
different
different world.
culture, just
Yeah,
really
you're
completely
not having
different.
the same experience at
We
all.
are not. We are not.
Yeah, not even close to it. So I
No.
think that's really important for us all to remember too, right?
Yeah. Well, my last question is more, I'm interested to know what is your personal um physical practice these days as part of body liberation, as part of just like your journey. Um, as someone who did a lot of strength training and you used to sell or you still sell as a strength training course. What does that look like today and in our climate?
Yeah, I mean, I think I still love strength training. It's actually funny. It's not funny, but it's interesting because I have just been busy with other things over the past few months. So I've been doing just like a lot of walking and whatever. But this week I'm like, oh, I'm really craving like
Mm.
moving, weights, like heavy weights. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it's really for me these days is more just like listening to my body. What do I want? What do I feel? What feels good? So yeah, I'm like moving back into like a regular strength training practice because I miss it, and I'm like, oh, I want to feel that feeling of just, I don't know. There's something about like moving heavy weight and feeling like really strong. Not that I'm not strong, but it's just like I don't know, something about it that just like
It's
love that
different.
feeling of just like deadlifting and heavy squatting, and so I'm like really craving that again. But I think that over the years, as I've healed my relationship with body image and movement practice, it's just been more intuitive. Like, what does my body need? What feels good right now? What is my body really asking for? And just trying to be really cognizant of listening to that.
I love that. And it comes up. I feel like now this is just going to be my tagline of the podcast is, we always end up talking eventually about just learning to trust your body.
Yeah.
And I think like in any kind of, uh, body care, self-care, body neutrality, body liberation, um, and then all these systems that we're describing, capitalism, white supremacy, all of that racism, they all are trying to get you to, be distracted, be detached, be disembodied, be alone. And the very, very first step, the pre-step is to just feel your own body and
Yes.
live in the ecosystem that you're living in that is just you. And
Mm-hmm.
once you can start to be like, oh, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty, I want to move my body, I'm craving this kind of movement, I
Yes.
am going for walks, I'm noticing these different things, that spirals out into like everything else. And I just like,
Everything.
I can't say that enough. That is just my whole teaching practice. But I've noticed that in myself too, is just um as I healed myself over the last, basically, actually, when Trump was first elected, before he was in office, I hard stopped all my physical practice and was just doing like some stretching and like a little Pilates, like just to kind of keep my system together. And really it was like this, like all the gears stopped and started to like just slow down. And I was like, everything that felt at all like trying to change my body or kind of goal oriented felt so insidiously like I was taking part in patriarchy. I mean, his
Mm.
first because of all the hatred directed towards Hillary Clinton, it was like misogyny was just like loud and proud every day. And
Yeah.
I got really hyper aware of like, where are any places that I am taking part in thinking that my body is for male gaze, that my body needs to exist to please others. So it's like I couldn't do anything that felt like it might be touching
Like
that.
it might even do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I like really was just like, oh, I'll go for a run. Wait a minute. Like, I'm not sure that's what I just like everything I pulled back. And I did that for like, I don't even know, like a few months or something. And then it was strength training was the first thing that I was like, okay, I like this connection to my body. I like what this feels like. And from there, I like spiraled back out into like other practices. And I think it's really important to recognize that like, just because, and this is kind of our conversation about intentional weight loss versus just like taking care of your life, just because something looks like the same activity that you did before running is a big example because people often did running for like self-harming, self-punishment, but then later are like, oh, also running is free and fun.
Mhm.
You can take part in things that you did before in a darker place and now do them from this more liberated, healed place. And that's such a part of this journey as well. And um the thing that really stuck out to me from what you said is like it's not goal oriented anymore, and that's the intuitive part. You're like,
Yeah.
what's my body feel like? That's the goal. What do I want to like meet my body in?
Hmm.
And so much of the way that like fitness and sports is marketed to us is that, you know, you have to run a certain amount or a certain speed, or your workout has to be certain difficulty for it to quote unquote count.
Yeah.
And that is all part of these systems. That is all part of body hierarchies and like one person being better than the other. And it's very hard. Um, I just did this whole crazy running writing retreat, and there were a lot of, it was like, I've never spent so much time with women who are pro
Hmm.
athletes, and just people like iron women, like people that are doing very intense things. And it was really, I'm not usually around people like that. And it was really interesting to be around women who are like super goal oriented.
Yeah.
And like, it was clear to me that some people, that's really their personality, like that they just really get excited about that. But it's a struggle that I have if I want to take part in activities where there's more of that feeling, to literally be in this world that is like very capitalist, white supremacist, like Venn diagrammed, because
Yeah.
it's the same kind of organization, even
Hmm.
if it is like a cute community, you know, running group that meets on Wednesday nights. But if it starts to have this language of
Yeah.
like, do better, be better, it's so hard to be like, okay, how do we just focus on, I want to build more skill, I want to build more
Hmm.
strength. It might be fun to run faster because I just want to see what my body can do,
Yeah.
and not start to go on the slippery slope of now I'm better than other people, or now I'm only good if I can do XYZ. And
It's hard, actually, really hard.
yeah, it's super hard. I think that's the
Yeah.
ongoing work. I mean, I think that's just the
Yeah.
daily, constant, ongoing work because we live in these systems, all
They're
of us. We're
everywhere,
just swimming in them.
everywhere. Absolutely. And I think it's really like once you start to really notice it, you're like, it's in every fiber of our existence, right? So you're saying like even a running group, it's like really hard to be in a running group without us seeing it sliding into this other thing. And also to be around a group of people who they maybe not even recognize how they slid into that thing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to our like opening conversation, obviously so much of fitness and wellness space is white. It's able-bodied only. I had Uncle Nat on, who's a great, just amazing person and owns a hair boutique, like you know, waxing and things like that in Brooklyn. And they had great points about creating inclusive space where they were like, not everyone can be happy at the same time. Like that
Yeah.
is part of creating inclusive space. Like the person who has neurodivergence and needs a quiet space is not able to be in the same space as the person who's hearing impaired and needs louder things, you know? And they're like a big part of my work is being on the phone with people and saying, we're not going to be able to serve you here. You know, we
Yes.
do our best. And so
Yes.
like I was reading in your book about how obviously Black only experiences are really necessary. I love being in women only
Hmm.
experiences. Like
Hmm.
we can't, if you're in your local yoga class, running group, whatever, and you're noticing that it is like one person there, one
Yeah.
demographic, that's also a place to just recognize where are these systems going to show up in this group. Like if I show up to a running group that's like free at the park and it's like 75% white men, I will probably have a less fun time than if
Less fun
I
time. Very much less fun
and
time.
battle those things like way
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
than if I find just like the queer group that lets straight people in.
Yes.
That group will probably be a lot more
Way more
fun.
fun. Way more fun time. But I think what you just said is so important because when we do have conversations about being inclusive, it's so important to be like, actually, I'm not inclusive to some community.
Yeah,
And it's okay. Just explicitly state that. Like, just be honest about it because you truly, like you said, it's really difficult to be inclusive to everybody at the same time. And I think
yeah.
that's like a conversation people aren't willing to have sometimes. It's like, no, you're not inclusive to everyone. And that's okay. But just like let us know what you are inclusive to, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's so important. Um, is there anything else you want to say, talk about?
I mean, we could talk all day, but I really
I
feel
know.
like we've had great conversations. But I will say one last thing that you just talked that sparked something in me. You talked about like when Trump got elected the first time and just like wanting to not do anything for the male gaze. I just feel like that has
Mhm.
been such a freeing part of my life. Like when you just like stop caring about
Yeah,
what a man would think about anything you're doing, I feel like that has been so liberating in so many ways. So yeah, I agree with you on that one. That's been life changing for me.
that's a huge one. The biggest compliment that I've ever gotten is lesbian friends of mine saying that when they first met me, saw me across the room, they were like, "Oh, I kind of thought maybe you were queer because it seemed
Oh,
like you
that's
didn't
so
care."
cool.
They were like, "It seemed like you didn't care what men thought," and I was like, first of all, is that
Thank
so
you.
depressing if all straight women are giving off vibes constantly that they care what men think? That's so
So
depressing."
sad.
But
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, that's so awesome that me just sitting on a chair gave off I don't care."
That's goals, actually. Like,
That's
what?
right, right. But I think, yeah, that is a whole other part of body liberation that can be our part two conversation someday. Um, that a huge part of that is peeling off male gaze of
Yes.
whatever race of whatever. It's literally just that is women just grow up that is
Yes.
what you're supposed to care about constantly. Um, and it is extremely liberating to just pause in front of the mirror with whatever outfit you're on and just be like, let me just take a second and say, am I dressing to look like cute for someone else? Or is this the clothes that I want to be wearing today?
Yeah.
Which can include being like, oh, I think this outfit looks great on me,
Yeah.
but I am not necessarily wearing it to please outwardly.
Absolutely.
Um,
100%.
yeah. And I if you start doing that, you'll notice there is a certain kind of really insecure man who will make weird comments. I I'll never forget one of my clients came to pick something up back in my in-person storefront days. And I was wearing this like gold visor that I go running in. And it's my nod to my Eastern European heritage. It's very like, loud and, goofy Russian lady kind of thing. And I came downstairs and he immediately was like, nice head. And I was just like, oh yeah, because it's just something that I like. And maybe it's cute or it's not cute or whatever, but it's like just me expressing myself. I didn't put it
Yeah.
on being like, oh my God, it looks nice with
I
my
wonder what a man's
hair
gonna think
color.
about
Yes,
that.
exactly. And I was like, and you
Fair.
picked up on that vibe and you felt
Yeah.
all challenged. So you needed to somehow kind of neg me a little bit.
Yeah.
And if anything, I'm just like, thank you. I'm on the right side.
That you don't like this? That means I did something right today. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was such a
Thank you
fun
for having me. This
conversation.
was great.
Yeah. I will link to all the places to find you, but put it out there for the listeners.
Yeah, on Instagram and TikTok, it's I am Chrissy King. My Substack is The Liberation Collective, and website is chrissyking.com. And my book, The Body Liberation Project, is available pretty much anywhere books are sold.
That is true. Highly recommend the newsletter. And I hope to speak with you again or bump into you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I'm Cadence Debuse. That was Busybody Podcast. I'm the founder and owner of Brooklyn Strength Studios. You can find me on Instagram at Brooklyn Strength. You can find out more about my offerings on my website, brooklynstrength.com. I hope you'll subscribe to my Substack, Afterclass. All is in the show notes. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Please share with your friends so that more people listen to this podcast. I love these conversations, and I hope more people can hear them. My music is by Rob Byrne, performed by the Wild Yaks. My podcast is produced by Brad at Train Sound Studios, and my illustrations are by Jackie Mendez and Azul Trejo, and edited by myself. Thank you so much.